Well, the Israeli and U.S. strikes have achieved some very substantial goals. Obviously, the supreme leader was killed. A number of the other senior leadership was killed. The defense minister equivalent, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs equivalent, and a number of others. The missile stocks have been degraded, but certainly are still heading at the Gulf states, at Israel, and targets throughout the region. You see a continued and increased effort against drone capabilities. That has proven to be a challenge. I believe that the 6 American soldiers who were killed in Kuwait were killed by drones. So the objectives sought by the U.S. generally, again, I think, have been being achieved. We're not there by any means in a number of the categories. Um, Iran, I think, very foolishly has expanded the war as so-called horizontal escalation. They brought Hezbollah into it, as you're well aware, there in Israel, and that has resulted in substantial strikes by Israel against Hezbollah. We see the Iranian-supported Shia militia in Iraq have conducted a few strikes against U.S. bases in that country, and there has been retaliation for that. But most significantly, I think the big mistake is Iran attacking not just U.S. bases and assets in the Gulf states, but going after the civilian targets in those states as well. The real question, Yalda, though, is can these operations, again, very, very intense, you noted the number of strikes the U.S. alone has carried out, can they create conditions in Iran where some element of the regime forces, perhaps the regular military, if rather than perhaps the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, which, as you know, is a regime security element, but could break off and galvanize the people and other capabilities to actually topple the regime. I don't think that's the base case just yet. I don't know if there's something going on behind the scenes, perhaps by Israeli and or American intelligence operatives, but that is the big question.
General, you know better than anyone that aerial campaigns alone can't bring about regime change, but you've also seen in places like Afghanistan and Iraq where thousands of troops were sent in, and that didn't bring about the results that the United States wanted. Do you think that the objectives that President Trump has laid out, the Secretary of War has laid out, the Secretary of State has laid out, has been clearly thought out? Because just in the space of 72 hours, each of these objectives seems to sort of change at a head-spinning sort of rate.
First, if I could very respectfully, having known you for decades, I'd submit that we actually did achieve what we sought to bring about in both Iraq and Afghanistan, but that we made a number of mistakes subsequent to that. We fixed those in Iraq. You'll recall the surge in Iraq, which I was privileged to command, drove violence down by nearly 90%, and it stayed down for 3.5 years until the Iraqi government made some egregious errors. And in Afghanistan, we just didn't have the fortitude to stay, even though it was a very sustainable operation for us. But that notwithstanding, you're right that air power alone is not going to bring down a regime.